A spotlight fell on Susan Cabot, the radiant star of the Wasp woman who once captivated even a king. But in the shadows, a horrific secret waited. In 1986, in a trash-filled Encino home, Susan was bludgeoned to death by her own son, Timothy, with a wooden bar, blood splattering the mirror like a nightmare painting. Timothy, trembling, claimed, "She attacked me first." But was that the truth? Or the breaking point of mental illness and a twisted mother-son bond? Picture this: dogs barking wildly, half-burned letters, and an unlabeled bottle of hormones on the table. Was the CIA tangled in Susan's life? Was Timothy a victim or a killer? This is the story of a star forgotten by Hollywood, imprisoned by pain and madness. What secret did Susan Cabot take to her grave, and what drove a son to kill? Join us as we unravel this haunting tragedy. Chapter 1. Shining Through a Scarred Childhood. A little girl, hair tangled, stared silently through the bars of a Bronx orphanage. No one knew her real name, only that her eyes begged the world for help. In vain. That was Harriet Shapiro, the child who became Susan Cabot, a Hollywood star with a dazzling smile, but a heart full of scars. Born into a poor Jewish immigrant family in Boston, Harriet lost everything when her father left and her mother was sent to a mental institution. Imagine a small girl, shivering in a corner, hearing screams in the long nights, feeling like a discarded object passed from hand to hand. Records show 8 foster homes, but most are now demolished. Few recall where she stayed or what she endured. All we know is that Harriet faced emotional and sexual abuse, wounds that never healed. Something took root in Susan's mind, a dark seed, waiting to grow into an uncontrollable monster. But young Harriet didn't give up. She found light in singing and acting. As a teenager, she drew illustrations for children's books in Greenwich Village and sang at the Village Barn, a Manhattan club. Her voice, sweet yet haunting, like a whisper from a broken soul, caught the ear of a Hollywood talent scout, a friend recalled. Susan sang like she was sharing her pain, but there was hope in every note. Susan boarded a train to her dream, leaving her dark childhood behind, but that dark seed lingered, lurking in her mind, ready to awaken. A vague detail sparks curiosity. An old friend mentioned a letter Susan wrote to her mother in the asylum, but it was never found. Was it a final plea from young Harriet, or a secret she wanted buried? Her childhood wounds were the first spark of the tragedy to come. Insecurity, fear of abandonment, and a psychological monster laid the foundation for her mental illness, her twisted bond with Timothy, and her mysterious death. Susan hoped the spotlight would banish the darkness, but Hollywood was a brutal arena, ready to crush fragile souls like hers. They say a spotlight can save a soul, but when it dims, was it the past, or a hand that snuffed it out? Chapter 2. A journey to stardom sowing tragic seeds. A spotlight hit the film set. Susan Cabot stood still on stage, her smile radiant, but her eyes gazed into the dark. Behind the camera, someone whispered, "She'll never be a star." Susan entered Hollywood with a burning dream, but its glamour was a shattered mirror, reflecting both hope and pain. In 1947, she debuted in a small role in Kiss of Death, her sharp eyes like knives, catching producers' attention. Universal Pictures signed her quickly, and Susan stepped into a world of dramatic roles. But Hollywood, for all its dazzle, was a cruel arena where souls like Susan's could be crushed. In Tomahawk, Susan rode horseback across prairies. In Gunsmoke, she fired a gun like a warrior. But audiences never saw her cry backstage because a director said her voice wasn't soft enough to love. Hollywood boxed her into exotic or tough supporting roles, never letting her bask in the main spotlight. As a Jewish woman in the 1950s, Susan faced unspoken prejudice. Judged for her roots, in 1952, she landed a lead in a drama, but her name suddenly vanished from the official poster. No one spoke of it again except a studio secretary who whispered, "She asked too many questions." Was an invisible hand pushing her from the light. Disheartened, Susan left Universal in 1954 for New York's theater scene, studying with Sanford Meisner. She returned to Hollywood in the late 1950s, working with director Roger Corman on low-budget films like Sorority Girl and The Wasp Woman in 1959. The Wasp Woman, a woman transformed by an obsession with beauty, wasn't just a role. It was a prophecy for Susan, a woman fighting desperately for recognition, only to be caged by her own fears. Corman once said, "Susan had the talent of a major star, but Hollywood never gave her a chance. That role was her peak, but also a reminder of an unfinished dream." Susan's happiness was fragile as a stage light, ready to flicker out. Each role was a victory, but also a knife to her self-worth. She was judged as an outsider, rejected for not fitting Hollywood's mold. Her childhood fear of rejection resurfaced, a growling monster in her mind, deepening her mental illness. This was the next spark, making her vulnerable to family conflict and her mysterious death. Her twisted bond with Timothy stemmed from this insecurity. As Susan sought love and fame but never felt enough, she stood in the spotlight, but the darkness in her soul grew. The light made her face glow, but did anyone see the tears falling silently behind the lens? Chapter 3: Early Tragedies Leading to Paranoid Loneliness. In a lavish Beverly Hills hotel, Susan held a letter with a royal seal. A breeze stirred the white curtains and her eyes brimmed with tears. The final line, "We cannot go on." Susan Cabot, the star who dreamed of Hollywood's glory, now faced a fiercer battle her heart. In 1959, she met King Hussein of Jordan at a Los Angeles dinner, an evening orchestrated by shadowy figures, the CIA. Their 7-year romance was passionate, but hidden behind closed doors. Hussein gifted her a Rolls-Royce, promised marriage, and supported her financially when Timothy was born in 1964. Picture Susan in a luxurious room, reading a king's loving words, dreaming of a queen's crown. But the dream shattered when Hussein learned she was Jewish, deeming it unsuitable, a friend said. Susan sat by the window for hours, waiting for a letter that never came. Why was the CIA behind that fateful dinner? Some say Susan wasn't just a lover, but a pawn in a game bigger than she knew. Timothy's medical records listed his father as unknown. A notebook of Susan's logged anonymous calls, but it vanished after 1981. Were those threats from someone guarding a secret? Susan stayed silent. But the public didn't forgive. Tabloids called her the failed royal mistress, judging her for her roots and choices. Before Hussein, Susan married Martin Sacker in 1944 at 17 to escape foster care, divorcing in 1951. In 1968, she wed Michael Roman, 15 years her junior, but the marriage collapsed in 1983 amid family strain. Timothy, born with dwarfism due to a pituitary disorder, became her life center. But sensational rumors swirled. Was Hussein or actor Christopher Jones linked to Susan? Timothy's real father reports noted she received $1,500 a month from Jordan, fueling speculation. She locked her bedroom door, cut the phone line, and taped a note to her mirror. No one left. Hussein's betrayal and failed marriages deepened Susan's mental illness, PTSD, paranoia, and fear of abandonment. She was publicly scorned, seen as an outsider unworthy of royal love. This pain drove her to cling to Timothy, controlling him excessively, as if he were her last light. But that control created a twisted bond, both loving and violent, planting seeds for the conflict leading to her mysterious death. Susan, who once dreamed of eternal love, saw only darkness, and the tragedy's fuse was lit. Timothy was the last one by Susan's side, but was her love a sanctuary, or a cage leading to a deadly fate? Chapter 4. Final years in madness. When a social worker first stepped into the Encino house, she froze at the door. Inside was a stench, piles of trash head high, and Susan's eyes trembling behind a curtain, whispering, "Don't let them take me." Susan Cabot, once radiant under Hollywood's lights, now hid in a crumbling fortress. After quitting acting in 1970, she vanished from the world. Her home, once a symbol of Hollywood dreams, was now an abandoned scene. The living room's windows were boarded up. A bloodstain seeped into the carpet in one corner. A scrawled note on the fridge read, "No one touches my son." The barking of 4 Akita dogs echoed like a howl from a nightmare. Susan suffered severe mental illness, depression, paranoia, hoarding disorder. She couldn't care for herself, living amid rotting food and debris. A psychologist who treated her said, "Every session was a battle, like entering a caged mind," Timothy's tutor recalled. Susan screamed at her son, as if seeing a demon in him. Neighbors called her the eccentric, judging her strange lifestyle. In a sealed medicine cabinet, dozens of growth hormone vials were found. No prescription, no labels, and no explanation beyond rumors that Susan injected herself with Timothy's drugs as if chasing youth in an obsessive ritual. Was it a desperate bid to hold on to beauty, or a darker secret? She taped newspapers over mirrors, blocking all reflections as if her own gaze was the cruelest judge. Susan lived in fear of the world's abandonment, scorned for no longer being a glamorous star. Her twisted bond with Timothy grew tenser. She called him her only light, but lashed out at him, as if he embodied the world that betrayed her. The house wasn't just a home, it was her soul's tomb, where childhood trauma and Hollywood's failures merged. This was the next spark, turning the house into a battlefield where mental illness and mother-son conflict led to her mysterious death. Susan, who once dreamed of glory, was caged by the darkness in her mind. Was the trash-filled house a bunker Susan built to escape her past, or the slow-burn scene of a tragedy where a mother and son loved each other to destruction? Chapter 5, The Fateful Night Despair. At 12:42 in the morning, Timothy called 911. His voice shook. "There was a ninja. My mother's dead." When police entered the Encino house, lights blazed, dogs barked frantically, and the smell of blood filled the rotting wooden floor. No one laughed at the ninja story. In the bedroom, Susan Cabot lay motionless on the bed. Blood splattered on the mirror, her head crushed by a barbell's blows. A bloodied scalpel lay nearby. A silent witness. Picture the scene: a room like a sealed vault. Torn curtains dangling, trash piled high, and a mysterious wooden box on the dresser holding half-burned letters unreadable. Except for a final line: Timothy must not leave his mother. The Akita dogs growled from a corner, guarding a tragedy's secret. Timothy first insisted an intruder attacked, but his story collapsed. He confessed to killing Susan with the barbell and scalpel, claiming she, in a paranoid frenzy, didn't recognize him, screaming her mother's name and lunging with a knife. Police found an open hormone bottle in Susan's room, unlabeled. Timothy's medical records noted she sometimes used his drugs, but no one investigated further. Timothy, treated for dwarfism with growth hormones from cadavers, an experiment halted for links to Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, which can cause mental disorders, fueled questions. Did hormones push Susan into madness, or was Timothy hiding something? A coroner whispered. That room wasn't just a crime scene, it was a curse. Neighbors eyed Susan coldly, calling her the crazy mother in a filthy house. Her mental illness, depression, paranoia. Hoarding made her a prisoner of herself. Her twisted bond with Timothy, both loving and violent, was the final spark. Susan clung to her son as her only light, but in her madness, she turned him into a target of her pain. Her mysterious death, with blood on the mirror, was the climax of trauma and family conflict, leaving a vault of unanswered secrets. Was this self-defense in a panic, or the end of a curse spanning 3 generations? Chapter 6, Verdict and Doubts, Self-Blame. Timothy stood in the courtroom, eyes fixed on an empty chair where his mother once watched him rehearse plays. No one imagined he'd one day play the defendant. Camera flashes lit up, but Timothy's face was a riddle victim or killer in 1989. He was convicted of involuntary manslaughter, sentenced to 3 years probation after 2.5 years in jail. The judge said, both mother and son were caged by physical and mental struggles. Timothy's lawyer argued growth hormones, linked to Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, made him lose control. But was Timothy holding back? A leaked 1987 document showed the CIA monitored Susan's relationship with King Hussein, but most was redacted. Was there a bigger secret? The press dug into the past. Susan received $1,500 a month from Hussein, sparking questions. Was he Timothy's father or Christopher Jones? Her former lover Timothy's medical records were altered, but no one probed further. The public called Susan a failed star, a mad mother, but none saw her inner pain, childhood trauma, untreated mental illness. Her twisted bond with Timothy, both loving and violent, was the tragedy's heart. Timothy carried self-blame until his death in 2003 from heart failure. But his courtroom eyes hinted at another story. Susan's mysterious death, bludgeoned by her son, left questions unanswered. Or did we all kill Susan with our indifference? Was Timothy a victim? Or a killer? Or the only witness to a system that drove a mother mad and a son to a blade to break free? Conclusion: legacy of a faded star. Susan Cabot has no grand tomb, no star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but in an old film clip, she turns, looks into the camera as if trying to say something, then walks away. The star who shone in the Wasp Woman and Westerns is now just a memory in black and white reels. Her story, from a scarred childhood to Hollywood's glow to a mysterious death at her son's hands, is one of Tinseltown's most haunting tragedies. A folded letter, yellowed, was found behind a bookshelf. It held one line: "If Timothy isn't here, I'm not me." No one knows when she wrote it, but it feels like a prophecy. Susan's legacy isn't just her roles. The Wasp Woman remains a cult favorite, but her life story leaves a deeper mark. In the 1980s, awareness of PTSD and hoarding disorder was limited, leaving Susan unsupported. A proposed biopic, Black Oasis, in 2007, fell through. Like her unfinished dreams, Susan is a symbol of stars forgotten by Hollywood, judged for not fitting the mold. Her mental illness and twisted bond with Timothy, both her light and her shackle, pushed her into darkness. Mysteries linger. What was the CIA's role in Susan's life? Was Timothy the son of Hussein or Christopher Jones? Did hormones drive mother and son to madness? Susan's death, with blood on the mirror, is an unforgettable image, sparking debates about mental illness and family conflict. A friend said, "Susan just wanted to be loved, but she never felt enough." Her lesson is a warning: fame doesn't erase pain. Untreated mental illness can lead to tragedy. Susan and Timothy were both victims of trauma, society, and secrets too heavy to share. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you make of Susan's mysterious death? Was Timothy a victim or a killer? Could Hollywood have saved her? Maybe she was never truly heard. But today, her voice echoes in the shadows. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more haunting stories.